Hello and welcome. Welcome to Quilt Conversations Live. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter, and I'm excited to share with you another fun project idea. And this time it's combining paper with fabric. Yes, paper with fabric. You can sew this paper. And I'm going to show you some techniques that I've used to creatively combine the two together. So, first thing first, let's talk about the paper. And if you're watching on Amazon, say hello, unmute in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. And I say hello to my friends on Facebook and YouTube. It's good to be with you again. The first thing we're going to talk about is Kraft Text. That's the paper. It's a paper that you can sew, that you can put through an ink printer, inkjet printer. You can dye it, you can wash it. You can do so many things with Kraft Text. Now, I have selected a couple of different colors for you on Amazon. You have some rolls and you have some sample packs. Right now, we're looking at a sample pack. You can get it pre-washed, pre-dyed, or you can get it plain and dye it yourself. So let's look at this sample pack first. Here we go. I'm going to go to the overhead camera. So here it is. This is the first one. And for those watching on YouTube and Facebook, we've talked about this before, even here on Amazon. This is the Kraft Text. You can get natural white, black, stone, and chocolate in this set. And it's unwashed. What does that mean? That means that it's smooth and flat. It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And you get those colors. This is the natural, and this is the stone. Now, this stone, I've already started to work with it. It was actually a test for me. You can see some stitching on it. I've stitched and I've also taken it and I crumpled it up. I crumpled it and you get this beautiful texture. And the stitching, that was freehand stitching on my sewing machine. That's right, on a sewing machine, on paper that you can wash, that you can put through your printer. Here is an example where I put it through my printer. It went through an inkjet printer, and now this paper is sturdy and it's thick. It's like cardstock. So you want to make sure that you put your printer settings for cardstock paper so it can feed through accurately. Okay, so this is the natural, neutral beginner. Smooth, unwashed, undyed. All of it can be dyed. It can be painted. You can use inks and do stamping on it, all kinds of things. And I'm going to show you some of that. Okay, so here is the second one. Let's look at the difference between the two. This is highlighted in the carousel. This one now is hand dyed and pre-washed. It's tough and you can stitch through it. Look at the difference. This is, let's see, what do they call this one? Orchid. This is Orchid. And this has been, by me, crumpled up a few times to get this beautiful texture. But this was probably white Kraft Text that was dyed with this beautiful color. I love this color. Same thing here. This is called greenery. Kraft Text. Look at the texture on that. Let's look at the difference between once you start to crumple and wash it. Remember, this one is hand dyed and pre-washed. Once it's smooth, unwashed, undyed, but now look at the difference. once you dye it and start to wrinkle it up and wash it. It gets this look of leather, this nice texture. I love this Kraft Text. Now you can also put Kraft Text through die cutting machines. You can put it through die cutting machines, and I die cut some hearts. Now I use the hearts, but I'm also going to use what's left over. So I'm not going to throw this away. You can use this, and I'm going to show you an example. Here's another color. Beautiful. Love Kraft Text. Okay, so now that you've been introduced to Kraft Text, I want to share with you some ways you can take this paper and do some creative things with it. And here are some examples. We're going to talk about how you can combine Kraft Text with fabric. And I like to use, personally, Batik fabric. And I'm going to highlight that in the carousel. I put in 2 different Batik fabrics from Island Batik. And I have to say that both the Kraft Text and the fabric were both given to me. The Kraft Text was provided when I was, a couple of years ago, an ambassador for Kraft Text. I am no longer an ambassador, and I'm sharing today is all my own opinion. They don't even know that I'm here live. I just love crafting, and I wanted to share it with you. But I wanted to let you know that this was given to me, but it was a couple of years ago. Same thing with the fabric. I was an ambassador for the Island Batik company. I am no longer an ambassador, but this fabric that I'm going to share with you is fabric I received from them. Let's take a look at this fabric. They have foundation fabrics, ones that they make continually. They vary slightly occasionally, but most often you can get this one over and over. It's not like, let's say, a collection that's limited and seasonal. So I have some Batik fabrics here. Let's look at the overhead camera. So this is the Batiks. They're called Foundations by Island Batik. And when you click on the link on Amazon, it will take you to a page where you'll see multiple examples, multiple fabrics. It's not just one fabric on that link. So you might see blue and think, well, I don't like blue. I like yellows and purples. Click it anyway, because once you get there, you will see a variety of fabrics like you see here. Look at these fabrics, these Batik fabrics. Aren't they gorgeous? I love Batiks because each side of the fabric, you can use either side. There's no right and wrong side with Batiks. So that's one set. That's a variety. And then this one is a lot of blues. Different blues with different patterns on it. This is also from their Foundations collection. So go take a look if you love Batik fabrics. And why do I like Batik fabrics? I like Batik fabrics for this combination of stitching because Batiks are tightly woven. And tightly woven fabrics don't fray as much. And I think they're a little bit more resilient for this project of taking this paper, making a window, and putting some fabric in the center. And putting some fabric on the back. We're going to look at this one in detail. This has some Island Batik foundation fabric on it. Let's take a look at this with the overhead camera. So here is an example of how I've taken Kraft Text and combined it with Island Batik fabric. Look at that. Now there is a vinyl protection here. This is Island Batik fabric, some decorative thread, more fabric on the back. And I'm going to share with you this process. I've taken a nice size of Kraft Text. Cut a window. Let me go back to Kraft Text. Let's see. This one I think is called Denim. I'm going to highlight this in the carousel. You can get this by the roll and then cut out whatever size you need. I made a calendar cover. You can make it a journal cover. You can make it any kind of cover you want to suit your particular needs. Okay? So look at how just adding some strips of fabric on the diagonal, putting some decorative stitching, and adding this window with your favorite quilt block. This is Quilt Conversations, so there is a connection to quilting. I love taking different techniques and combining them to do something a little bit different. So here is an example. This is one. We're also going to talk about different window types. Here's another window. Again, this is die cutting. You can put this paper through your die cutter. And I did it twice. I made a window like you see here, but then I also inlaid a separate star on top. So no inlaid star here, but then there's an inlaid star there. No inlaid star and then inlaid stars. So that gives you like this double, this border effect. Let's look at that up close. See how there's a Kraft Text in between. Let's see what color Kraft Text we have here. The Kraft Text in between all that, I'll just highlight that in the carousel. Beautiful, right? And again, another cover. Another cover. And you can see in the inside, which I'm going to show you how that all comes together. So that's another example. Here's another example with that same Kraft Text. This is Masala, and this is this beautiful gold color and a Calico Cat. This is the die from AccuQuilt. And I'm going to show you how to cut this cat with AccuQuilt. Let's see, I can highlight this in the carousel. Let me scroll. So that's the Calico Cat using the AccuQuilt Go. That's an example. Also, with a die cutter, whichever one you have that will allow this paper to go through, here's another example where I've taken the negative and the positive from cutting with the die. Nothing goes to waste. Creating this window to feature some Island Batik fabric, another way to include fabric, and adding this applique of paper on top of paper. Another calendar. This is a weekly calendar, but you can make it anything you want. You exercise, you have an exercise plan, you have a cooking plan, you are a journal writer, any idea book, whatever you use, you can make it any size that you want. And if it's something that you do on a regular basis, once you make this, you just pull out the calendar and you insert a new one or whatever it is. Love that idea. Then here's another idea with the star with fabric. So here's a star with fabric and here's a star without fabric. This is all Kraft Text. All right. So let's take a look at a couple of different things here. We're going to look at, let's see, here is another look at those covers and how I've incorporated fabric with paper. You can do this. Just look at what supplies you already have and then get the other supplies. So this is the Kraft Text. I'll highlight it again in the carousel. For those watching on Amazon, it's now highlighted. This is the designer Kraft Text. You can get it by rolls or you can get it by a sample pack if you've never tried it before. But remember, I said we're going to talk about how we can combine the Kraft Text with not only paper, but to use different windows. So we're going to look at this first. This is the AccuQuilt Go cutter. I'll highlight it in the carousel on Amazon. Those watching on YouTube, if you're interested in any of the tools I talk about for these projects, you just go to the description box below. All the links are there. So this is a die cutting system. There's the Calico Cat die, which I have right here. This is the Calico Cat die. And it's going through the AccuQuilt Go cutter. This is the die. It's just been highlighted in the carousel on Amazon. And you can put Kraft Text and fabric through this die cutter. You just roll the die through the two rollers. Those rollers apply pressure so that the blade in the die cuts through the fabric or the paper. And so there you see that once it went through, it cut the Calico Cat. And now I have two cats. And since I put the fabrics wrong sides together, I have two mirrored cats. You decide which direction you want the cat to go. And that was using the AccuQuilt Go cutter. Now, when you use the cutter, you have to use a cutting mat, and that's what you see there on the left-hand side. That mat goes on top of the fabric or the paper so that when you roll it through the cutter, the Go cutter, it puts pressure, the two rollers put pressure on top of that mat, and as that pressure is placed upon the mat, it allows the blades to cut through the paper and the fabric. And this is a hand crank machine. You just turn the crank and you feed the die right through. And as it's going through, it is cutting the fabric or the paper. All right, so you can see that, and that is the Calico Cat. So once the cat was cut in this Kraft Text, and this is Marsala, it's a nice deep red. I'll highlight it in the carousel. Marsala. Once it goes through, you have this window, right? And now you want to put something in the window. What are you going to put in the window? In this case, I just put more Kraft Text, but you can also put fabric. Let's look on the inside. So you can see on the inside, there is the additional Kraft Text. And you might notice this part, it's just stitched right here, but this part, the rest is glued. So before it's stitched, there's a little bit excess, and I put glue to hold it in place before I sew, because I can't get a clip here, which is another thing to notice. I didn't bring my clips over, but I'm going to show you in the carousel. Because Kraft Text is a paper, once you punch a hole in it, it's permanent. So you don't want to use pins like you would with sewing with fabric. You want to use clips. And I use Wonder Clips. Wonder Clips are fantastic for holding things in place. But if what you're sewing is too far away for the Wonder Clip to hold, you can use glue. And I like to use two different types of glue. One that works really well to hold things in place is called Aleene's Tacky glue. I just highlighted that in the carousel. That's Aleene's Tacky glue. I use this glue and it holds it in place, and it's permanent pretty much. Let me hold this over here. So right in there you can see a little bit of a reflection of the glue right there, and that was this glue, Aleene's Tacky glue. It works well with holding the paper in place so that you can stitch around the edge. So you see the stitching to hold in this Kraft Text in this window of the Calico Cat. I used a regular sewing machine. You're probably wondering, well, what needles did she use? I used these needles, Superior Thread needles. I'll highlight that in the carousel on Amazon. This is a 40 weight needle. It's a 90-14 needle for 40 weight thread. And that was the thread that I used, a 40 weight thread. And you just use the needle that you would use to match the thread that you're using, because remember, it's going to leave a hole, right? If the needle is too large and the thread is thin, it's not going to fill the hole that the needle creates. You want to make sure that all you see is thread, not a thread swimming inside of a large hole. So make sure you match the needle with the thread. Okay, so if you've never tried this type of needle before, this is the Topstitch needle. You can get a variety pack. I use this for everything, for sewing, for quilting. The Topstitch needle is fantastic for multiple purposes, but get a needle that, works with your machine. This is the one that I use. You can get a variety pack. I just highlighted that in the carousel, and it's available on the description box below and on YouTube. So that's that needle, and you're probably wondering, well, what threads is she using? I'm using a variety. Hey, hi, Polly. So nice to see you over there on Facebook. Glad you're here. Awesome. I like the Calico Cat. These are the threads that I like to use. Some cotton threads. These are 50 weight threads. I use this as well as some 40 weight threads, polyester threads. This is a cotton thread. This is Connecting Threads cotton thread. It's essential. It's 50 weight. It's 100% cotton, and it is long staple. Long staple. And you get a variety of colors. I like to get a couple of the colors. I just highlighted in the carousel, and the link is there for you on YouTube. You get a variety in this set, and so you'll be good to go. And for this one, you would use a 80-12 needle because it's 50 weight thread. Beautiful. This is just some of the colors that I have. I didn't bring out all the colors, but there's a rainbow of colors to match your Kraft Text. Okay. What else? Now let's look at, let's see, we did this already, but you needed to see that you can use any die cutting system that you have to cut paper or to cut fabric. And I use the AccuQuilt Go. I use the AccuQuilt Go. And that's this guy right back here. And I have multiple dies. So you can get dies that work for whatever dies you have, or get some new ones. This is my heart die. This is my flower die. I highlighted this in the carousel on Amazon. dyes are fantastic for creating those fun windows. But say you're ready to first just play with Kraft Text. Say you want to just play with Kraft Text. Let's look at some of the things that you can do by just playing with this first set. This first set, which is the neutral and natural set that I showed you, I'll highlight it again in the carousel. All right, first set, right? 8.5 by 11 sheets, unwashed. Okay, which means you can wash it, you can create texture, you can do whatever you want. Okay, let's look at some examples. So here's some examples of playing with Kraft Text. Taking the natural and the black and just adding some accents with a little bit of thread and fabric. A little bit of thread and fabric. Now, a lot of us who sew and craft, we have scraps left over. We have portions left over from larger projects. And so if you have a bin of strips of fabric or you have leftover quilt blocks, you can use Kraft Text to have fun. Let's look at the overhead camera so I can show you some in progress to give you an idea of how it begins. Okay, so this is the Kraft Text. Let's go back to do these last. This one first. Okay, so this is just some fun with the Kraft Text. Taking that neutral set that's unwashed and smooth. You see that smooth? This was smooth, but I did what? I took it and I made it into a ball to get this awesome texture. See that texture? That is the Kraft Text texture. This is how my covers start, whether it's a calendar cover or a journal cover, any kind of cover that you would make for a book that you want to carry around. You make it any size. This is pocket size. And then I just stitched down different elements. You just have fun. Have fun with it. This is about ready to go. I just need to add the other elements to create the sleeves on either side. And then I would insert my book. Ready to go. This has a more of a masculine look to it. This is what the back looks like. You just want to have fun. So this is one example. Here's another example. Just taking in strips, cutting it with a little bit of a different edge. And that is with a pinked rotary blade. A pinked rotary blade. Do you have this in your collection of tools? I'll highlight this in the carousel. It's a 45 millimeter rotary blade, rotary cutter, and then the blade is pinked. And so you can get a separate blade to create those different edges and just have fun. In this case, you see how they just came together, and then here I alternated it so that you can have these little gaps, little windows, so that you can see the back of this. Now, I can leave it just like it is, or I can continue to add something to it. And here's another example of where I use the pinked blade to cut the black Kraft Text edge with these pinked edges. This is a straight edge here, pinked edge here. Same thing here, pinked edges, then straight edge. Any edging that you want. It's up to you. You be creative. You decide how you want. Just have fun. Have fun with it. Okay, now once you start doing that, you want to experiment. And that's how I started. And now I'm looking at applique. I did some applique with just straight strips. And this is this beautiful deep orange. I just highlighted that in the carousel. And now I've added a flower. Very feminine, right? Very feminine. Matching the thread to the color of the Kraft Text. A stem here. And then here is the grass on the bottom. My little interpretation. This is a cover that's ready to be finished. It just needs the 2 sleeves on the end, and I did some more pinking on this side. So the difference between this one, a little bit of a feminine touch, this is more of a masculine touch. You decide what you want to make. It's just have fun with it, right? So now from applique, we have some more applique. We have windows. Here are some windows with some Kraft Text, right? Here and here. And you can put in this window anything you want. You can put a photograph. You can put fabric. You can put Kraft Text. I have Kraft Text here, and then here I have some corking, some cork. And you can see that this is smooth. This is in progress. And this Kraft Text is the smooth one that comes in that first set. Unwashed, natural. Unwashed, natural. And then here is the washed. So look at the combination of the smooth Kraft Text with the smooth and the textured Kraft Text. And again, some more pinking. That strip is pinked instead of a straight edge. What a neat idea, right? You can put a photo in there. I have yet to do that, but that is an option. Okay, so now this is in progress. This needs to be trimmed and glued down, and then a sleeve put on top of it. So it would get this kind of sleeve on the inside like that. Or let's see another example of a sleeve. In this instance, I use some vinyl. This is some clear vinyl, and I put fabric over the entire section here. So you don't see this part. This has vinyl, and I use 8-gauge vinyl. I'll highlight that in the carousel, those watching on Amazon. 8-gauge vinyl. You don't want a vinyl that's too thin, that's going to easily tear. I like 8-gauge. But, that could be personal preference, what you want to use. Okay, so that's highlighted in the carousel. And so that's stitched down. This is a way to hold back pages once you have the planner inside, or the to-do list. In this case, this is a to-do list book. And so I would take this, put that inside, and as I use it, I'm able to hold back the pages. And this is just sewn right into the planner. See how it's right here? It's sewn into the planner. It's part of it. It's sewn underneath the fabric. There's vinyl here, 8-gauge vinyl there, and 8-gauge vinyl in the back and front. So here's the difference between adding fabric and not adding fabric. So there's no fabric on this side, just the vinyl only. And then this side has fabric in the background. And again, this is the Batik fabric. Remember, I like Batik fabrics. I'll highlight that in the carousel. I'm using Island Batik foundation fabrics. Foundation fabric. So we have some fabric here, but on this side, no fabric. Now I could still add it if I wanted to, but this is a to-do list book that you can replace once it's finished. This is finished and ready to go. And this is the back. And I just had some fun with the stitching and creating this window. There's fabric in here. Let's take a look at that underneath the sewing machine. In case you're wondering, I did stitch this on a sewing machine, a home sewing machine. You can see it there. I'm about ready to finish the edges. You see the Wonder clip. Remember, no pins when you're holding things in place with Kraft Text. You want to use a Wonder clip. And a Wonder clip is fantastic. They come in different sizes. This is the medium size. And I just get the big container full with about, I think, 50 or more in it. That's the best option, to get one with at least 50. That's what I like, because you're going to use them. I like that. So this was sewn on a home machine. Home machine. And that's a nice bright red Kraft Text. And I used the vinyl. Okay, so that is another way you can do windows. We saw this one, again with vinyl. Another example of the Kraft Text and using a die cutting system. Remember, you're always going to have this negative and you're going to have a positive. And look, this time I switched up on the thread. Instead of using blending thread, I use contrasting thread. So you can have fun with the thread. Have fun with it. Let's look at that die is highlighted in the carousel. This is an AccuQuilt Go die that I used for this one. That is this die right here. So whenever you get the die, you always need a cutting mat to go with it so that you can cut the shape. So here's our shape. This is the stem, and I put the stem right here. Now remember, window or an applique with every single time you use a die cutting system. You're going to have some leftover, right? Or on either end, depending on what you're using. And so you can decide how you're going to do it. For the stem, just to show you that you can do different things, I'll highlight another one of the Kraft Text colors. There's so many beautiful colors, right? Let's see. Okay, so here is a stem that is a window. This is a window with green Kraft Text put in the back. Okay, and look at the edge. It's pinked, but it's also doubled. We have this lighter green and darker green that you see in the window. That's the stem. That's an example of one way to do a stem on a flower. Look at the difference between these two. This one is also appliqued on top, but instead of the stem being a window, it's an applique. It's right on top of the other Kraft Text. So have fun. Try different things. These are fun ideas to use with paper and with fabric. Now, I could have used something a little bit brighter here to represent a flower, but here's my flower here and here as a positive. This instead is more of a frame than a flower. I'm using the flower shape as a frame instead of as a flower. All right. let's see what's next on this for inspiration. So we looked at this beginning, how you can just use a couple of strips of fabric, a couple of strips of Kraft Text. Then we looked at how you can do windows, and here are some more windows with hearts. Just experiment, 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 and have fun with it. Combining fabric with your windows, combining Kraft Text with your windows and applique. So much fun. And I like to use, again, Batik fabric because it's tightly woven. And I use Island Batik fabric. This is the fabric that I use. It's their foundation fabrics. Foundation fabrics. So pretty. Go to the overhead camera. This is a set of blue foundations. And the reason why they call them foundations is because they make collections and seasonal fabrics, collections that are around for a period of time and then they're gone. But foundations, normally you can get them 1 year after the next. And that's why I like these foundations. And I love that the fabric is the same on both sides. There's no wrong or right side of the fabric. Tightly woven. It's less likely to fray. You can see that. Less likely to fray. Tightly woven. Love Batik fabrics. That's one set of blues, and then here's a little rainbow of, when you click on the link on Amazon, you're going to see just one in the carousel below. But when you click on it, you're going to see an assortment of different colors. Matter of fact, why don't I show that to you? Let me find that and I can show it to you so that you can see what I'm talking about. I have it in my Amazon shop and I will show that to you. Let me get that up and running. Let's see. All right, here we go. And I'm going to click on, let's see, this one here. Does it say foundations by the yard? Okay, we're ready to go. Here we go. All right, so this is the foundations. And you can click on different colors. You might see just one represented, one color, but once you click on it, then you will see the variety of colors. Okay, like this one I have right here, this orange. Okay. So I hope that was helpful so that you could see that you can get a nice variety of colors to suit whatever Kraft text that you decide to use. I love using Batik fabrics. All right. Now, one that I showed early on, if you're just joining me, this is, I would say, the most unique out of all the Kraft text covers that I've made, where I've combined Kraft text with fabric. The other ones were a slow development of the style of using applique and using windows to create various types of covers. So we saw these, and we're using both washed and unwashed. Where's my other one? Okay, here we go. So this is the designer colors, pre-washed, pre-dyed. This is a combination of the unwashed, different colors from that set. Okay. And this is just a slow use of applique with the Kraft Text. And then from there, we started to use die cutters. And we die cut and created these nice little windows. From the windows, without vinyl, we added vinyl and fabric in the window. So slowly, slowly, slowly adding different techniques and combining to get different looks. Now, let's look at this one here a little bit more in detail. This is not only combining Kraft Text with a fabric that you see here, it's using some decorative stitching. You can use decorative stitching on your sewing machine to create different textures. Isn't that neat? What a difference. Okay, so here's an earlier one where there's fabric on top, again using Island Batik fabric, and this has straight line stitching. It's nice, it works, but what if we try something else? A decorative stitch. Look how this herringbone decorative stitch just changes the whole look of this fabric. And because the thread is similar in color, you just see the contrast on the Kraft Text. This is the same stitch that's on the edge of the fabric. It's just blending in on the fabric here. It doesn't contrast so you don't see the other half, but it's the same stitch. Now let's look at this. This is a vinyl window. Again, your window can not have vinyl. It could be Kraft Text only. It could be whatever you want to put in the window. But once I put fabric behind it, I wanted to protect it. And I wanted to add a quilt block. And you can add your favorite design with fabric behind this window. Or you can put a photograph like I mentioned before. So in this case, I wanted to put a block in here a certain size. How do I get the right size to fit the window? Now in this instance, this was a calendar. It could be a notebook for your own notes. It could be anything you want, an address book. It could be a journal. You make it whatever size you want. But once you determine what size the window is and you want to put something in that window, and in this case, I wanted a quilt block, I needed to design it. And I use a design software. I use EQ8, and I'm going to highlight that in the carousel. EQ8. You can get the software new for Mac or PC. If you have an older version of EQ, like 7 or 6, you can upgrade to 8. It's worth upgrading to 8 because it's a whole new system and it's fantastic. And I want to show it to you. Let's take a look. All right, so this is EQ8. You can design quilts with it. And you can also design individual quilt blocks. So the quilt block in this cover, made with fabric, was taken into EQ8 and resized to fit this window. How do you do that? How do you do that? You're probably wondering. All you have to do is go into new. Let me go here. See if I can get this working right. Okay, there we go. Layout. I click layout and I go under vertical and horizontal design. I only want one block for my quilt. So it's 1 and 1. Easy, right? Just below that, I decide what size I want this block to be. And you can see there it's 4 by 4. 4 inches wide, 4 inches high. Now I can also make sure that by checking a box that both dimensions remain the same no matter what size I make the quilt block. Or if I unclick the box, I can change one dimension while not changing the other. See how it changes? And if I decide that I want a long, narrow window with a fabric in it, some design, I can do that too. And using this software. So I'm going to keep them the same. I want a square block. And so once I adjust one, then the two are adjusted together. So 4 inches. Now going back to the top where the tabs are, new quilt, layout. Right now we're in layout. We're not going to add any borders. We're going to go to design. Once I click the design tab, that's where I get to pick different blocks. And this software includes so many quilt blocks. I can add them into my project. You see several here, and all I have to do is select the quilt block that I want. Say I want to add, instead of this block, I want a star block. I select the star block, then I click inside the box. I want to put that inside this window. Say that's what I want to do. Now 4 inches, that might be too tiny, right? Let's try something else. Let's go to the block library. I'm going to open the library, click open the library, and there are so many blocks to choose from. So many to choose from. Let's select this one right here. I'll select that one. Now I can go in and design and alter any block in the software. But I don't want to do that. I want to use it as is. So I click up here at the top where it says Work Table. I look now in this lower left corner for that block. I just have to click over until I see the block, and there it is. It's already highlighted. Now I click the center of this large block that I'm designing, and I click, and now that block is in there. Easy peasy, right? All right, so now I want to use my colors, whatever colors I want. How do I do that? Going over to the top, right now I am in block tools. I want to go over one to fabric tools. Click on fabric tools. Now I have a host of colors and fabric swatches. You can photograph a fabric like I have here, these Batik fabrics. If these are the fabrics I wanted to use, I can photograph these and insert them into the software so that I can use the actual fabrics in the designing of the quilt block. But say I don't have the fabric yet, but I know what colors I want. I can also do that. I can choose colors. So let's choose some colors. Right now it's fabrics that's selected in the tab on the lower left. Now I just click on colors, and now I have an assortment of colors to choose from. Let's try pink. Now you have different applicators that you can use to select different sections of your quilt to color. So I'm going to use the paintbrush. And the paintbrush, I'm going to change all the orange by just clicking on that area, and now it's pink. Let's choose another color. Choose another color. Let's go down here. Let's see. What would be a good color to go with this? Let's try this bright yellow. Let's change this to the green to the bright yellow. Fantastic. Now I want to change the background, the white, to black. How do I do that without having to click each one? If I go to the fabric tools just above the colors, all I have to do is click on the spray can. Let's click on that. Spray can. Now I'm going to look for black, and I can scrub this down till I find that. Well, let's choose, other than black, let's choose a different color. Let's just choose a darker blue. This dark blue looks good to me. So I'm going to click on the white, and now all the white was turned to that blue color. And now that I have the right size, I've chosen the colors I want, and now I have to select how do I want to sew this together. The software gives you options. All you have to do is click on Print and Export at the tab at the top. I'm going to click on that, and now I have options. I can print the pattern as a rotary cutting pattern, as a paper foundation paper piecing pattern. I can do it as templates. I just click the block and then select the method I want. Let's try templates. I clicked on templates. It's showing the quilt block. Now I have all these options of how I want to print out the templates. I can also preview. So I'm going to preview the templates. There are the templates based on a 4-inch quilt block for the window that I want for this window. Not only does it do that, let's close this and close this. It will tell me how much fabric I need to make this quilt block. So I'm going to do that. Let's click on yardage. I click on yardage. Let's preview. And there it tells me how much fabric I need for each of those 3 colors. All the math is done for you in this software. I love it. All right. Fantastic. Okay, and then I'm going to cancel that. So fantastic to be able to design and create your own quilt blocks in this software. I love this so much. I use it all the time. And so now if I wanted to do a different quilt block, I can go to the library, add another quilt block. I can decide that I want to do something different. I would just go to the library and browse through the available blocks and scroll through and see which one I want to use. I add it to my project of blocks, and so I can choose one. I can say I'll choose this one right here. I add that to my project. I can either use it as is, or I can design something new as a starting point, but I'm going to use it as is. Go back to my project, and there it is. I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to change out this block, and now I'm starting a new design. Now, of course, this is just one block for a window. If you want to do multiple blocks in one window, but maybe it's a larger window, you can easily do that by just changing the layout. So what did you think? Isn't that a fantastic software? I love this software. It is wonderful. I enjoy working with fabric and other elements to make something completely new and different. And EQ8 helps me to design quilts. Like the quilt behind me, it was designed in EQ8, an electric quilt 8. I love this design software. All right, so I'm thinking about what have I not covered. I think I went through everything. Oh, I have one surprise for you. One more surprise. This is my favorite mug. If you ladies have been watching my live streaming show here on Amazon, Facebook, and YouTube, you know every session I use my red copper mug. And it's in the carousel for those on Amazon. If you're just joining me for the first time, I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter, and I love to help anyone who wants to learn how to sew with fun and enjoyment with the right tools, and to quilt, and to do craft projects. So I share those techniques here and the tools that I use. And tonight it's all about combining paper and fabric to make amazing projects like this. All right, this is another one. Because once you get started, you're going to keep moving. If you are a maker and you love to make, you like to use your hands, and you like to use paper and fabric and a sewing machine and thread, you're going to find ways to put those all together. And you're going to try different things. You're going to keep pushing the envelope, so to speak, right? So here is a fun project. Let's take a look, because this is all about paper, right? Look at this. Yes. This is a traveling tic-tac-toe kit that I made. I used unfinished wood. It was an unfinished tic-tac-toe kit. And I said, well, can I use this with Kraft Text? I'm like, yeah, why not? I'll highlight this in the carousel. I used the Unwashed Natural. I'll highlight that again. If you've never tried Kraft Text before, it's such a fun product because you can wash it. You can put it through your printer. You can paint it, dye it. There's so many things that you can do with it. And so I said, well, you can also stitch it and you can use glue with it. So let's take a look. I'm going to show you in the overhead camera. Here we go. This is the Kraft Text traveling tack-toe. It's something that would be great for kids, right? I made this matching case with a handle, all Kraft Text. This is Kraft Text again. And this is the bright red, but you can, of course, make it in any color you want. Maybe you might want a more neutral red like this marsala. This is a little bit gentler, I guess. It depends on your taste. You just get what you like. Okay? So many colors of Kraft Text. Again, some applique, right? X and O, meaning love, right? Some zigzag stitching in there to hold down. And again, those strips were cut with this pinked blade, a rotary blade with a rotary cutter with a pinked blade. I'll get that right. And again, just some die cutting for the heart. And a little bit, but just very simple stitching, straight lines here, and then some decorative stitching right here. You decide how you want to decorate it. It's up to you, with thread or with fabric. But this time we have a zipper. I added a zipper to this project. a zipper. Isn't that neat? I like the way this has turned out. And now there's some Island Batik fabric on the inside as a lining and a pocket. So there's a pocket, a fabric pocket on the inside. And I use Island Batik fabric. I highlight that in the carousel. Foundations. But here is the Kraft Text Tic-Tac-Toe. These are wooden pieces that I applied Kraft Text to. This is Kraft Text glued to wooden pieces. And then I just use red Sharpie. A red Sharpie to paint the wood. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can use a permanent marker. And then you're probably wondering, well, what glue did she use? Here is the Kraft Text on both sides. Both sides, and then some Sharpies, a black and a red. And I have an assortment of Sharpie colors. So it was easy to just get the ones that I needed. This is Kraft Text. Glued to unfinished wood. This is an unfinished wood set. And I just had fun making this board. And these didn't have to be even. I just had to have 9. That's all, right? And I put some red as my background instead of the wood. So the wood you don't see, but here's the unfinished wood. It has a little platform. I made a platform for it. See how it extends? This extends past the wood. This is the actual wood sides. And again, I just added a little heart going along with the case theme. This is the tic-tac-toe is inside this case that I made, this zippered pouch. It's for on the go. And you would just play tic-tac-toe in the back of the car. This is something for the kids, right? And that is it. So easy. It was fun to make. It was fun to have the process of knowing, okay, how do I take this unfinished wood set? How do I add Kraft Text to it? How will I glue it? How is this glued down? Now remember, if you've been here, I've talked about one glue that I've used, and that's Aleene's glue. Let's see, where is she? Here it is. I've used this for some projects, and it works well. But in this case, I wanted something heavy duty. Heavy duty. And so I used, let's see, another glue. All right, I'm looking for it here on the carousel, almost there. Okay. It's Liquid Fusion. Is that the right one? Yeah, Liquid Fusion. This is the glue. See, heavy duty glue. I wanted something heavy duty, knowing that it was going to give me good adhesion. It's great for not just projects like this, but it's also good for maximum strength, water resistant, and heat resistant. You can see all 3 of those right there. So it's great for bags. It's great for projects like this. When you want to have good fusion between the 2 materials. This is what I used. Okay. But I like both of these glues. I use this one as well. Just highlight that in the carousel. This one I use most often when I just need to temporarily hold the Kraft Text together and I'm going to sew it together. This holds it in place if I'm not using clips. Okay, so that is the Kraft Text that comes in so many different colors. You can have fun with it. Fun, fun, fun. Okay. Easy peasy. Just takes patience to do, right? I think there's one more thing. You're probably wondering, you know, these are ideas that I've made myself, but what if you want some more inspiration on how to use this Kraft Text with fabric? You can get a book. And there's a book on Kraft Text. And I'll highlight that in the carousel. And it's called Kraft Text Style. Here it is, Kraft Text Style. It's Kraft Text that combines the best of leather and fabric. Fantastic book. You can combine the Kraft Text, which is the leather. Remember, once you start to crumple and wash it, it gives that texture of leather. And you combine it with fabric. So here is an overhead view of this book. Let's do this one instead. There we go. And the good thing about this is that it offers you information about needles, thread, stitch length, the different tools. It's a good beginner book for Kraft Text. If you're interested in using it and you have all these different projects that you can then take those tools and techniques that they start you with and start making things like placemats, doing some weaving, making storage bins, using fabric and Kraft Text together. All kinds of projects all in this book. Remember I said you can ink it. You can use ink on it with inks, stamps and ink. You can stitch on it. Here's another example of how there was some hand embroidery done. All inside this book. Okay, fantastic book if you want to get started. I want to show you one last surprise. And this is what I use to hold my rainbow of colors of Sharpies. I'll highlight that in the carousel. This rainbow color Sharpies. And you're probably wondering, well, how does she use those? What does she use them for in crafting? I use these permanent markers almost like I use it as a paintbrush. Just like I did with the tic-tac-toe set that I made. The wood in this was finished off with Sharpies. The O's were black, and so I just went around the wood with a black permanent marker, and the X's were red, and I use a red permanent marker. And so that's from this set here. You get all these different colors. Let me highlight that in the carousel if I can find it. Yep, there we go. Good selection. So take a look, not just at the Sharpies, which is nice, you know, this rainbow of colors, all right? Any color you need. Love Sharpies. This is another project that was unfinished wood. You can see on the inside that the very bottom is unfinished. But look at the top. That is stamped and painted, but it is Kraft Text that's been inked. It has so much ink on it. The background was a green Kraft Text. Let me see if I have it here. Yep. ones over here. It started off as this green, this color green Kraft Text. But then I started to do some ink stamping on it. Now remember, you can take any color of Kraft Text, any color, and you can go put it through a printer. You can wash it. You can use ink stamps. You can put it through a die cutter. I lost my words there for a minute. But take any of the colors. Look in the carousel below. If you're on YouTube, hey, Gary Jones. Hello, Luce. Thank you for following. I appreciate you. Thank you for following. Awesome. Let me know if you have any questions about Kraft Text. So this was stamped over and over to create this texture and this beautiful, in my eyes, dimensional quality with the ink. Look at that texture. It's kind of like a, what do they call that when it's aged looking? It's kind of aged, right? It has that nice texture to it. But this, underneath the ink, is this green Kraft Text. You can get a hint of it a little bit in the background. A little bit in the background. This green. Okay. Now, the unfinished wood, this is Kraft Text too. This is the natural. Okay. So this is the natural. But what I did was I added some of the ink that I used to create this stained look on the back of the unfinished wood. I used that ink on the natural, on this natural. You see how it gives it a burnt look? I love how that came out. I don't know if you can see that that is Kraft Text, right? This is the natural wood here unfinished, but this is the Kraft Text. You see that texture? That is the Kraft Text. And you can tell, let's see, it's been turned over right here. There's just a little lip right here of the Kraft Text coming over the edge. That's the wood. See if I can get that where the light can, you can see it with the light. Yeah, that's a little bit better. All right, so this is the Kraft Text coming over the edge, and it has been stained with the paint to give it this rough, aged look. And here's the texture of that Kraft Text. This has been washed and creased to give it that leather look. I'm going to highlight which one that is in the carousel. So remember I said you can get the Kraft Text in rolls. So I have it in these rolls. This is what you just see inside the carousel. And I get the roll in the unwashed, smooth, so I can put it through my printer, cut it to size. And then I also get the designer washed ones so that you can use this and cut it to whatever size cover you're going to make, whether it's for a journal or for a book. You decide what you're going to make with it and how big it's going to be. So here is another color. So many different colors of Kraft Text. Here's another color. Can you tell that I'm in love with Kraft Text? If you are just joining me for the first time, you're watching on Amazon and you find this intriguing, this is not the first time that I've shared Kraft Text. Go to my channel here on Amazon even on YouTube, I have several sessions on Kraft Text, and there was one session where it was called Quilt Paper, and I show you a whole nother level of using Kraft Text in an amazing way. Look at the replays. Quilt Paper, and I think there's at least one other. At least, I've done this at least 3 times, maybe 4, I don't remember now, I'm losing count, but I know at least 2. Quilt Paper is one, and it's on the replay right here on Amazon. And if you're watching, hey, hit the follow button. Don't forget to follow. If you enjoy this session on how to use paper and fabric to create these beautiful covers, I think that's just amazing. Using design software to create a quilt block in the center, but you can make this window any size you want and put anything in it you want. It doesn't have to be a quilt block. If you're not a quilter, you can put a photograph in it. This could be your inspirational journal, and you put whatever you want in that window that will inspire you. Make it as a gift for someone. Maybe it's a college student that's going off to college and you want to give them a journal, or they're going on an adventure and you want to give them a journal. You make a cover, you put some photo or something in there that's important to them. Make it personal. I love personal things. These things are treasured. They are what connect us. When we use our hands to make something and we gift it to someone else, not just for ourselves, but to gift to someone else, that makes a connection, a bond between you and that person. Every time they look at that, they open it, they touch it, they use it. Whoops. They're going to think of you. They're going to think of your relationship. So I love handmade things. That's another reason why I make quilts. I make all kinds of things. Baskets, planner covers, journal covers. But I love that when I make something with my hands and I gift it to someone else, that it's something that I have taken the time to do, something that we have taken the time to make. We've poured ourselves into it, and then we gift it to someone. It's special. It's unique. I love it. So that's it for tonight, folks. If you have any questions, you're watching live, please let me know. I'm watching the comments on Facebook and YouTube, also here on Amazon. Please let me know before I sign off if you have any questions about Kraft Text, about the die cutter, the AccuQuilt Go that I have behind me, what vinyl I use. I talked about 8 gauge vinyl, different ways that we can make fabric and paper work together for beautiful projects. That's what we talked about tonight, and we looked at, if you're just watching for the first time, we looked at different windows like that and like that. I let you know that you can use this paper on a home machine. As you see here in the photo, all that stitching is done on a regular home machine. So that means you can do it. Here's another example of just doing some simple approaches, a little bit more masculine approach to making these journal covers or to-do list covers. It could be a cover for anything that you want. That's another example. And here are the ones where you went from simple to a little bit more complex with different types of windows. Windows where you feature your favorite item, photograph, fabric, quilt block, whatever you want. You decide. You have fun with it. Challenge yourself to try something new and different. If you're a maker and you love to sew and you love to make things, you can make a cover or you can make a zippered pouch with Kraft Text and bring it into the woodworking category. This is a wood set, an unfinished wood set that has Kraft Text glued to it to make it a tic-tac-toe traveling set with a carrying pouch. That's right. This is all Kraft Text. If you're just joining me, this is Kraft Text. You can buy it by the roll. It's not difficult to make and to sew. And if you need inspiration, there is a book. There's a book with all kinds of projects similar to this one, and you can get started. And that book is called Kraft Text Style. I'll highlight that in the carousel one more time if you're just joining me. And remember, those watching on YouTube, this is in the description box below the video. So any of the things I talked about, the glue, the Kraft text, the needles, the thread I use, all of that I used are inside that description box below. And right here on Amazon in the carousel, Kraft Text Style. Tools, techniques, and projects to help you get started with this paper that sews, goes through your printer, can go through a die cutter, that can be inked, stamped, painted, washed. It's resilient, it's sturdy, it's fun to use. There are no limits. Well, yes, there are. There are limits. If you put a hole in it, it's permanent. So be careful when you stitch. You can't stitch with too close of a stitch length because basically you're creating a perforation and it will just tear. So you have to use a longer stitch length. That is one thing that's important. Okay, I think that's it, folks. I've covered everything in the carousel. I don't think I left anything out. I'm going to sign off since you don't have any questions. Thank you for joining me. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter, and thank you to those who have been watching on YouTube and Facebook. I will see you in a couple of days for another Quilt Conversations. Have a good evening. See you next time.